Awakening in the Tugen Hills. The dawn comes quietly in the Tugen Hills, long before the modern world has taken shape. It is not the kind of morning you would recognize. No alarm clocks, no sirens, no buzz of electricity. Just the soft rustle of wind moving through leaves and the distant calls of birds that no longer exist in your time. In this ancient place, roughly 6 million years before skyscrapers or smartphones, something stirs in the treetops. You are Ororin. In your own mind, you have no name, no language to define yourself, no knowledge of what you are. But millions of years into the future, scientists will give you a name, Ororin Tugenensis. Ororin, meaning original man, in the language of those who will someday inhabit these same hills. Tugenensis, from the land that will fossilize your bones and offer them up as evidence that something remarkable once walked here. But today you are alive. You begin to stir in your nest high up in the trees, built from layers of broken branches and palm leaves carefully woven together during yesterday's final light. Your eyes blink open. Not in fear, this is not new to you, but in habitual alertness. Instinct demands it. Sleep is never entirely safe here. The wind might rustle a predator closer, or a branch might crack beneath your weight. The air is crisp, still carrying the moisture from last night's light rain. As you stretch your arms and unfurl your fingers, you feel the coolness of the leaves against your skin. Your hands, so important to your survival, are not yet like those of the humans who will come after you. Your fingers are slightly curved, perfectly shaped to grasp and climb. Your thumbs are opposable but not fully independent. Still, they serve you well. Below, the forest is still waking up. The chirps of insects rise with the light. The trees sway gently. The earth itself feels young. From the safety of the branches, you look out across your world. A rich green canopy stretches out in every direction, broken only by distant outcroppings of stone and the shimmering reflection of a slow-moving stream. You do not understand this beauty, not in the way future humans will, but you recognize its usefulness. Trees mean fruit. Streams mean water. And the height offers you protection. But not enough. Because here, in this wild ancient earth, you are vulnerable. You are not the strongest creature in this forest. Nor are you the fastest or the most aggressive. Your body is light, built for balance, not brute force. Your teeth are sharp enough for fruit and small prey, but not for tearing through thick hide or defending yourself from attack. You have no claws, no horns, no venom. You are not the hunter. You are the hunted. Still, you are something new, something in between. The sky shifts color slowly as the sun climbs, gold and rose bleeding through the canopy. You know it is time to move. You never stay in the same place 2 nights in a row. The patterns of the trees, the calls of nearby animals, something tells you whether it is safe or not. This morning, you feel cautious. Climbing down from the branches is no small task. You move with practiced precision, grasping bark and vines, letting your weight carry you down. Each limb finds its place. Each foot steps carefully. You descend as easily as a chimpanzee, but your body is already evolving in a different direction. You are not fully adapted to walking upright, not yet, but your bones are beginning to change. Deep inside your legs, your femur is elongated. The neck of the bone tilts forward. The angle helps align your weight above your knees, supporting balance when standing on 2 legs. Your hip joints are wider. Your spine is beginning to curve in the way that will one day define the human gait. Still, your bipedalism is not effortless. You are what scientists in the future will call a facultative biped. You can walk on 2 legs when it suits you, when you're foraging, crossing open space, or climbing low, but when speed is needed, When fear tightens your chest and instinct takes over, you drop to all fours. It is faster, safer. Today, you step cautiously onto the forest floor. You stand briefly on two legs, testing the air. The ground is soft with last night's rainfall. A faint breeze brings the scent of wet leaves, distant animals, and something else, something sharp and wild. Your senses sharpen. The forest holds many sounds, but there is a silence you recognize, the silence of watching eyes. You pause. There is no language in your mind, no inner monologue, but your body knows. Something is out there. Your head turns. Your nostrils flare. Your ears twitch. In the distance, behind a cluster of shrubs, a shadow moves, low to the ground, fluid, patient. A cat. Not the house cats humans will one day keep for pets. This one is larger, more dangerous, a distant ancestor of the leopard. Its golden eyes glint in the morning light. You do not hesitate. You don't scream. You don't charge. You simply move. Quickly. Efficiently. You retreat toward the trees, not running blindly but weaving through ferns and undergrowth with practiced precision. You are not alone. Several others from your group, sleeping nearby, are already on the move. A chorus of soft rustles and the thump of bodies hitting bark signals a coordinated retreat. The trees embrace you once more. Up in the canopy, the danger fades. This is life for you. Every day is a fragile balancing act between nourishment and escape, between curiosity and caution, between innovation and instinct. You eat when you can, sleep where you can, and survive only because you are alert. But something else drives you, too, something that is not purely animal. You explore. You try new things. You remember. Later, when the danger passes and the sun climbs higher, you descend once more. You move toward a patch of fruiting trees near a bend in the stream. You do not know breakfast, but you know hunger. The fruit is plentiful, yellow-orange skins that split open with a twist of the hand, revealing soft pulp beneath. You eat with both hands, spitting seeds onto the ground. Around you, the rest of your group, 8 or 10 individuals, do the same. Your group is small, but tight-knit. You do not have language, not in the way modern humans do, but you communicate. Your gestures, grunts, and expressions form a subtle code. You can signal food, water, fear. You show annoyance, affection, warnings. There are moments when 2 of you reach for the same fruit and one backs off with a glare. There are moments when a younger individual stumbles, and another steadies them. These are not random. These are the beginnings of something more, a growing awareness of others. Your survival depends not only on what you can do, but on what you can share. At midday, the heat grows thick and heavy. The forest darkens under the weight of the sun. You retreat into the shade, your body cooling slowly. You do not sweat in the same way your descendants will. But already, the sparse distribution of body hair, lighter than your ape cousins, allows you to regulate temperature better. It is a minor adaptation, but crucial. This is the slow drip of evolution. Nothing about you is finished. You are a walking experiment, a bridge between species, the result of millions of years of pressures, chances, and minute changes. Your bones are not yet fully human. Your mind does not grasp philosophy or art, but you know how to survive. And survival is everything. As the afternoon stretches onward, clouds begin to form overhead. Dark, swollen with moisture. A soft rumble rolls through the hills. Rain. Not all animals like rain. But for you, it brings an opportunity. You do not run from it. You stay. You continue foraging, even as the first drops fall. Many predators retreat during storms. The rain masks scent, dulls sound, gives you time. You crouch near a patch of tall grass, plucking insects from low leaves. The water slicks your skin. Your posture, upright, means less of your body is soaked than if you were on all fours. This small advantage will someday grow into an evolutionary marvel. By the time the rain passes, the forest is cleaner, quieter. You drink from the stream, the water cool and clear. Your lips touch the surface carefully. You are always alert. The sun sets slowly. You find a new tree. You begin to gather branches, flexible, strong. You know which ones bend and which ones snap. Your hands work with speed, precision. You are not just finding shelter, you are building it. A nest, a structure with layers, a central depression to support your body, and carefully placed cover to conceal you from above. It is not a mindless task. It is planning, foresight. It is the first whisper of what humanity will become. When night falls completely, the stars emerge overhead, clear and ancient. You do not map them. You do not name them. But you see them. You feel the rhythm of their movements. The passage of time. The weight of something you cannot understand. You are Ororin. You are not man. Not yet. But you are the beginning. Survival by instinct and adaptation. The forest changes with the weather. One day it breathes with warm winds and dappled sunbeams, and the next it shivers beneath a pale curtain of mist and rain. For Ororin, these shifts are neither strange nor frustrating. They are simply the rules of a world that does not explain itself. There are no calendars, no forecasts, only instinct and observation. This morning, the rain has softened the edges of the landscape. Droplets cling to every leaf. The sky above the canopy is a smooth sheet of gray. But down below, beneath the thick boughs of Kenya's ancient trees, the earth feels alive and heavy. You move cautiously, each footfall silent on the damp undergrowth. Your eyes scan, not for beauty, but for patterns, shadows that don't belong, rustles too soft to be wind. You are not alone. Your small group, 8, perhaps 10, fans out around you in loose formation. There is no leader. No one gives commands. But your movements are unified, governed by the logic of shared experience. A collective instinct, developed not through rules but repetition. This is survival, lived out moment by moment. You approach a low tree bearing small yellow fruits. You sniff one cautiously, turning it in your hand. The skin is firm, the scent faintly sour. You press a thumb into it, feel it yield slightly. You bite. The flesh inside is soft, tart, and energizing. Your teeth, more robust than those of later humans, make short work of the fruit. You spit the seeds into the grass. There is no waste here, only what the body needs. In the distance, something shifts. You freeze. It is not sound that alerts you, it is silence. A sudden, eerie stillness in the underbrush. A break in the rhythm of birdsong and insect chatter. The forest holds its breath, and so do you. Then it moves, a low, sleek shape, golden and muscle-bound, slipping through the tall grass like smoke. A cat. Larger than you. A predator. One wrong step could make you its next meal. Your body knows what to do before your mind fully understands. You don't scream. You don't bolt. You do something subtler, smarter. You shift. Your posture drops slightly, your limbs loosen, and you pivot away without turning your back. You slide silently toward the nearest tree, testing each step before committing your weight. One of your companions sees you move and mirrors your caution. The cat does not attack. Not yet. It watches. Predators are smart. They test. They wait. They look for weakness. You climb. It's awkward. Your feet are better suited for both gripping branches and touching ground, but the transition between the two isn't smooth. Still, your body understands the tree. As your fingers wrap around bark and your toes dig into moss, you feel safer. Elevated. You know the leopard is less likely to pursue you up here. From your perch, you peer down through the branches. The predator lingers, circling once before vanishing back into the undergrowth. You remain still long after it's gone. Stillness is safety. This is the nature of your life, constantly walking the line between curiosity and caution. Each day you must leave the trees to eat, to drink, to move, but each day also brings the risk of never returning. Your kind survives not through strength or speed, but through awareness and memory. You may not think in words, but you remember. You remember the tree with bitter fruit that made your belly ache. You remember the stream that remained cool even during the hottest days. You remember which path led to an eagle's nest, and which path led to a snake pit. This memory, stitched together from repetition and pain, is the foundation of your adaptation. Later, as the clouds begin to break and beams of pale sunlight return, you descend once more. Your group regathers near the stream. It is shallow, and the water runs fast, bubbling over polished stones. You crouch on your haunches, cupping water with your hands, an act made possible by your evolving anatomy. Other apes must kneel fully, but your upright posture gives you more flexibility. The water is cold and sweet. You drink, pausing often to lift your head and listen. Danger never truly fades. A young female approaches the stream and begins to clean a fruit she's found. She dips it in the water, turns it, rubs the skin with her fingers. It's a simple act, but remarkable. She's not mimicking, not merely repeating. She's problem-solving. In the distance, two males jostle for position beneath a fig tree. One growls low in his throat, chest puffed. The other backs away but does not leave. You recognize the tension. It is not quite a fight, not quite a game. It's negotiation, the beginnings of hierarchy. But your group does not rule with force. Dominance is fluid, based on health, alertness, and sometimes pure timing. There are no permanent alphas, only temporary leaders. Today you may be first to spot danger. Tomorrow you may limp from a bad fall and find yourself trailing behind. As the afternoon unfolds, the forest grows quieter again. Rain has driven many predators into their dens. You take advantage of the calm. You climb a tall termite mound and crouch at the top, scanning the horizon. Your height gives you vision over the tall grass, a significant evolutionary advantage. You see more. You prepare sooner. The grass sways with the wind, and distant hills shimmer under the emerging sun. Somewhere beneath those hills, the volcanic earth stirs. One day, lava and ash will blanket this land. Bones, yours perhaps, will be buried in that ash and turned to stone. Fossils waiting to be found. But today you are alive. You move to a fallen tree, long rotted. You pry at it with a stick, loosening bark, digging into the soft wood beneath. Insects scurry out, grubs, pale and wriggling. Protein. You eat quickly, licking your fingers. Other members of the group take notice and join you. This is not competition, it's opportunity shared. This is the unspoken code of your kind. Gather together, retreat together, learn together. As the light fades, you return to the trees to nest. You do not build randomly. You select specific branches, strong, flexible. You layer them with care. You test the weight. You create a shallow depression for your body and a raised edge to keep you from rolling out. This is not instinct alone. It is foresight. From above, the forest seems peaceful, even beautiful. A blanket of green ripples in the wind. Birds wheel in the darkening sky. Somewhere, deep below, the cat moves again, silent, tireless. But up here you rest. You lie curled in your nest, watching the stars emerge. They are not symbols to you. They are not stories. They are simply the last lights before sleep. And yet, they shine on a creature unlike any other. Not a chimp. Not yet a human. But something in between. You are Ororin, the first walker. You do not dream. You do not speak. But your life is the beginning of a journey that will echo forward in time, through fire and stone, through myth and machine. And it all begins here, under the canopy, in the heart of a forest that remembers everything. Early social structures and communication. The sun rises slowly through the tangled canopy, weaving golden fingers of light through the mist-soaked air. The forest awakens not with a sudden burst of sound, but with a gradual swell, the rhythmic drips of last night's rain falling from the leaves, the faint buzz of insects beginning their day, and the soft calls of distant primates echoing across the valley. Ororin shifts in his nest. High above the ground, cradled in a platform of interwoven branches and leaves, he stretches his limbs. His shoulders roll. His long arms flex. His fur is still damp from yesterday's rain, but the warm light seeps into his skin. He does not understand comfort the way modern humans do. But he feels something like it, a fleeting ease, a moment of safety. That moment doesn't last long. From a few trees over, there's movement. A rustle. A low vocalization. Then another. He recognizes them, not just the sounds, but the individuals who make them. Familiar bodies, familiar scents. Members of his group. He watches without moving, observing how they stretch, yawn, and climb down from their respective nests. There is no command, no call to action. But still, they begin their descent nearly in unison, like dancers who share a rhythm without a choreographer. This is the magic of early society, unspoken synchronicity. There are perhaps 9 individuals in Ororin's group today. They don't have names, not the way humans will later assign them, but they are distinct nonetheless, each with their own quirks, their own preferences and patterns. There is the large male with a scarred cheek who tends to forage first and climb last. There's the older female who favors the left side of the stream. And there's the pair of juveniles, quick, nervous, and curious, who mimic nearly everything they see. Ororin is somewhere in the middle. Not the strongest, not the smallest, not the boldest or the most cautious. But he remembers, and he adapts, and that, in this world, is enough. The language of the body. As the group descends, they pass each other in silence. But it is not true silence. Their eyes meet. Their brows rise. Shoulders shift. Hands extend slightly, then retract. These subtle movements, imperceptible to any modern predator, are their language. Not words. Not yet. But meaning. Ororin brushes his shoulder against the younger male as he passes him on the tree trunk. Not hard. Not aggressive. Just enough to say, "I'm here. I see you." Later, when they reach the forest floor, one of the females vocalizes softly, a short, low hum. Ororin glances toward her and sees her gaze fixed on a patch of disturbed leaves near a fig tree. A warning. Perhaps a snake. Or maybe just a sign that something unfamiliar passed through during the night. He doesn't investigate. He trusts her signal. This is the foundation of social survival, mutual awareness. Without it, life in the forest is short. Rules without rulers. As they begin their morning forage, the group spreads out. Not far, never so far that one can't hear the others, but just enough to reduce competition for resources. They follow a rough semicircle pattern, moving through the underbrush like a slow wave. There are no formal rules, no dominant leader issuing orders. But there is still a structure, invisible and shifting. The scarred male often moves ahead. He takes the higher branches, the first fruits. The others let him, for now. His strength has earned him that position, but it is not guaranteed. Should he falter, fall ill, grow slow, another will take his place. Hierarchy here is not a throne. It is a seat warmed by merit, relinquished by weakness. Ororin observes this dynamic with quiet intelligence. He does not challenge the scarred male. He does not push. But he knows the rules. He knows that alliances can change the group's flow. Sometimes he shares food with a juvenile female, the one with the narrow shoulders and the habit of humming to herself. He doesn't do it out of generosity. He does it because she follows him, and her presence adds an extra pair of eyes, another early warning system. Social capital, traded one bite at a time. Emotions in the wild. Modern humans often think of emotions as a luxury, something for poetry, song, and heartbreak. But for Ororin's group, emotion is a tool of survival. Fear sharpens senses. Trust builds alliances. Anger protects territory. When Ororin finds a pile of overripe fruit dropped by a bird, he lets out a short, staccato grunt. Within seconds, 2 others appear. He gestures, barely more than a nod, and the 3 eat together. Not equally. Ororin takes the largest fruit. But the others don't challenge him. He shared. That's enough. Later, one of the juveniles climbs too high and snaps a weak branch. He falls, not far, but lands hard. There's no verbal cry. But his body stiffens, his face grimaces. Ororin watches as his mother rushes over, not in panic, but with focused urgency. She examines him with her hands, touching his limbs, pressing gently. The juvenile growls once, then quiets. The moment passes, but Ororin remembers it. Gestures that speak. The group's communication is built from a repertoire of small, repeatable gestures. A raised brow means interest. A sideways glance signals caution. A quick step back means, I saw something. A subtle head tilt asks, did you hear that? A quiet, sharp breath warns of approaching threat. Even facial expressions hold meaning. A tightened jaw, a curled lip, a wide-eyed stare. When they forage near the base of a large hill, Ororin notices a new kind of vocalization from the elder female. A click-click-click sound, paired with a series of short hand flicks. He watches her repeat it twice before following the line of her gaze. A bush full of buzzing insects, edible ones. Within minutes, others imitate her signal. By afternoon, it becomes a shared vocabulary. No one taught them. No one wrote it down. But the knowledge has spread. Moments of conflict. Even in cooperative groups, conflict is inevitable. That afternoon, as the sun reaches its highest point, the group converges near a small, shallow stream. The water is cool, and the heat drives them to rest. But rest brings proximity, and proximity brings tension. One of the males, young and impatient, approaches the scarred male too closely. He wants a spot by the water, a better fruit, a better branch. Maybe all 3. The scarred male stiffens. He stands slowly. The younger one doesn't back down. There's a pause, long and loaded, where no one moves. Then it breaks. Not with violence, but with theater. The scarred male hoots. Loud and sharp. He stomps once, slaps his hand against his thigh. The sound echoes. Birds scatter. The younger one flinches, steps back. Challenge dismissed. The group watches, then returns to drinking. Conflict diffused. Childhood in the trees. While the adults forage and negotiate, the juveniles learn. Not through lectures, not through discipline, through mimicry. One young female watches her mother dig at a termite mound with a stick. An hour later, she tries the same. Awkwardly, ineffectively, but she tries. Another mimics the elder female's humming grunt while poking a piece of bark. The sound is clumsy but recognizable. Play becomes practice, and practice becomes instinct. Ororin pays close attention to the juveniles. Not out of sentiment, but strategy. Young minds notice things that adults overlook. A strange fruit, a new bird call. The juvenile's curiosity often leads the group to new opportunities and new dangers. To watch them is to watch the future unfold. The nights return. As the day cools and the shadows stretch long across the forest floor, the group begins to reconverge. They move slowly now, bellies full, limbs tired, for still sticky from the heat. There is no spoken agreement, but everyone knows it's time to return to the trees. Sleep is sacred, not because it is restful, but because it is dangerous. Sleep demands vulnerability. And so, like builders preparing for a siege, each member of the group selects their sleeping tree with care. Ororin chooses one with thick branches and a clear view of the moon. He builds his nest quickly, faster than yesterday. The structure is tighter, more layered. The center is deeper. The edges higher. Practice makes perfect. As the sky darkens, he looks around. He sees the elder female humming to herself, already curled into sleep. The scarred male scanning the horizon one last time. The juveniles tangled together in a clumsy but affectionate heap. It is not civilization, but it is society. It is not language, but it is communication. It is not love, but it is connection. And for a creature halfway between ape and man, that is more than enough. Early intelligence and environmental mastery. Dawn comes again, not with fanfare, but with the same quiet persistence as it always has. The world doesn't announce a new day, it simply begins to glow. A lightening of the sky behind the hills, a softening of the darkness under the leaves, and the first distant notes of birds that only exist in memory now. Ororin opens his eyes. The air is thick today, humid and heavy with the breath of distant rain clouds. From his high perch in the tree nest, he inhales deeply. There is a scent on the wind that he has learned to read: damp earth, unsettled dust, the faint tang of ozone. A storm may come later, but not yet. He rolls his shoulders and rises, stretching his long arms and gripping a branch overhead. Below him, the forest is already in motion. Leaves rustle as other members of his group begin to stir. Their silhouettes shift behind branches, barely visible but familiar. He listens to their movement, quiet, deliberate, efficient. No one speaks, but everything is understood. The landscape as memory. Ororin descends the tree with practiced ease. Each branch he grabs has been tested by weight and wind. His feet seek grooves already worn smooth. This is not just a tree, it is a home, a map, a place that holds history. He knows where each crack in the bark is. He knows where the ants live. He knows which side catches the first light and which side grows moss. The forest is not an obstacle to him. It is an extension of memory. As he reaches the forest floor, he pauses. To his left, a familiar boulder leans against a split tree trunk. Behind it, a hollow where rain gathers in a pool after storms. If it rains today, that pool will fill, and he will return. To his right, a tangle of vines where birds often nest. Insects crawl there. Easy food. Ahead, a patch of tall grass that leads to a narrow stream. Past that, a slope lined with berry bushes that are not yet in season, but soon. He remembers it all. Not in words, not in symbols, but in pattern. In space. In shape. His mind builds a map that no one teaches him to draw. The thinking creature. You could look at Ororin and mistake him for an animal, albeit a clever one. But that would be wrong. He is something different. When he walks toward the stream today, he does not go in a straight line. He moves diagonally, weaving through shaded patches where insects cluster after rain. He checks a tree base for mushrooms that sometimes grow after humidity spikes. He pauses at a fallen log and turns it with both hands. This is not wandering. This is problem-solving. When he finds grubs under the log, he eats 3. Then, carefully, he covers the log again with a large palm frond. Why? So that the moist environment will return. So that the insects will come back. It's not farming. Not yet. But it is stewardship, an understanding of cause and effect, of action and outcome. Later, as the group fans out to forage, Ororin moves toward a new area. He remembers this space. Weeks ago, a large predator had passed through here. He recalls the scent, the gouged bark, the broken ground. He hasn't seen it since, but he moves slower in this place. He listens more. He watches birds above for signs of alarm. Nothing stirs. He continues. Awareness of others. There are sounds in the forest that Ororin hears differently now. Not just the sharp crack of a snapped twig or the low growl of a feline in the grass, but the subtle signs, the scolding chatter of monkeys above, the sudden silence of frogs, the wind pattern shifting across open space. He is not only aware of himself, he is aware of others. Not just his companions, but every species around him. He knows which birds shriek at snakes, which insects flee before rain, which trees drop fruit in bursts, and which decay slowly, feeding fungi and beetles. This ecological intelligence, the kind that forms not from books but from generations of silent observation, is his strongest tool. And he is not alone in wielding it. The elder female in his group teaches without teaching. When she pauses beside a flowering shrub, others come to see. When she walks around a tree rather than under it, they follow. She never tells them why, but they learn anyway. Tool use, simple yet profound. Later in the day, Ororin finds a small mound of soil, freshly dug. A termite hill. He's hungry. Instead of using his fingers, he scans the ground and picks up a narrow stick. Not any stick, one with a thin end and solid spine. He peels the bark with his teeth. Then he pokes it into a small hole at the mound's base. He waits. Withdraws the stick. Termites cling to the end. He eats. This isn't just improvisation. It's intention. He chose the stick. He modified it. He used it for a single task. It is not yet what future scientists will call tool manufacture. But it is purposeful tool use, and that is enough to change the game. Nearby, a juvenile watches. He mimics the motion. Fails. Tries again. Succeeds. Barely. And in that success lies the first ember of culture. Not just knowledge, but knowledge passed on. A mind for shelter. As clouds gather and the air thickens, the group begins to think of night. Ororin looks for a tree with multiple strong limbs and wide cover. He studies the angles. He chooses one with 3 forks at shoulder height and a side branch that can anchor weight. He begins to gather material, not just any twigs, but pliable, interlocking ones. He arranges them carefully, creating a basin shape with a raised rim. He presses his body into the center to test the depth. He adds more layers. He reinforces the edge with a fallen vine. This is design. This is not instinct alone. He is not just building to survive. He is building for comfort, for safety, for efficiency. The nest will hold his weight, will support his sleep, will cradle him through wind and rain. Other species rest on the ground. Ororin creates, using fire without fire. Ororin has never seen fire, but he understands heat. When the sun breaks through the cloud cover in the afternoon, he moves toward a wide clearing. The rocks here retain warmth from midday light. He sits. He lets the heat soak into his limbs. It eases the ache from foraging. He chews bark from a medicinal tree and swallows the bitter paste. He does not know the word medicine, but he knows this bark soothes, and that is enough. He scratches his back against rough bark, picks insects from his fur, wades briefly in a shallow pool. The water is cool, and he lets it soak his ankles. He watches small fish dart between his toes. Another may one day try to catch them, but today observation is enough. The forest as partner. The day wanes. The rain never comes, but the scent lingers. As the sky turns lavender, Ororin sits on a high limb and watches. Below, the forest moves in layers, the rustling of leaves, the sway of distant trees, the glint of eyes in shadow. His companions settle into their nests. A juvenile hums softly. The elder female rearranges her branches. The scarred male stares toward the hills, motionless. In the distance, a leopard roars. No one panics. Everyone hears it. Everyone knows it's too far to be a threat, for now. Ororin's gaze drifts upward. The sky has cleared. Stars begin to bloom in the darkness. He does not name them. He does not tell stories. But he recognizes their rhythm. Night comes in cycles. Hunger, rain, light, growth. These things are no longer mysteries. They are patterns, and he knows how to read them. The mind in transition. Before sleep takes him, Ororin curls tightly into his nest. He touches the bark beside him, rough, familiar. His eyes blink slowly. He does not think in sentences. He does not dream in images. But he feels the weight of another day. He remembers where the termites live, where the berries will grow, where the stone under sunlight gives warmth. He knows who shared food, who to follow, where to sleep, and where not to step. This is intelligence without abstraction, memory without myth. But in it lies the seed of something unimaginable, because he is not just surviving, he is mastering. The forest was quieter today, still, even, not in that unsettling way that precedes danger, but in the calm hush of observation, as though the trees themselves were watching. Ororin moved slowly through the undergrowth, the pads of his feet touching wet leaves with barely a sound. The world around him was alive with stories older than memory, and his body read them like the lines of a familiar face. A certain scent in the air meant fruit was falling nearby. A certain curve in the trail meant water pooled in the rocks ahead. A silence in the birdsong meant something had passed through earlier that morning, something large. He didn't need language for these realizations. They were woven into the shape of his muscles, the rhythm of his breath, the direction of his eyes. His mind didn't ask questions like modern humans do. but it answered thousands of them anyway. What to eat, where to walk, when to stay low and when to climb. The forest, though ancient and wild, was not his enemy. It was his test, and Ororin was learning how to pass it. Midway through his forage, he found a small cluster of thick-shelled fruits. He picked one up, bit down, and felt the skin resist. It was too hard, his teeth couldn't break through. In the past, he might have thrown it aside. But not today. Instead, he crouched beside a flat rock, placed the fruit on top, and looked for something, anything that could help. His eyes settled on a round stone nearby, worn smooth from centuries of rainfall. He lifted it and brought it down with force. A crack echoed through the clearing. The fruit split open. Inside was golden pulp, wet, sweet, fragrant. He smiled, not in the human sense of pleasure, but in the silent satisfaction of a pattern solved. He did it again, then again. Each time, his strike became more precise. He wasn't just improvising, he was refining, modifying, learning. Later, when a juvenile in the group approached, Ororin watched as the smaller figure mimicked him, awkwardly at first, then with a bit more confidence. It was crude, but it worked. The fruit cracked, juice spilled, and knowledge was passed forward without words. They were not a tribe in the modern sense. There were no rules, no lessons, no stories spoken beside a fire. But something ancient had awakened in them, the ability to act with intention, and for others to imitate that intention. In the afternoon light, the group moved toward a new patch of land, an area between forests where tall grass swallowed the ground. It was risky. Ororin knew that standing upright in open terrain made him vulnerable, but it also gave him height. From up here he could see. He could scan. He could choose his direction, not just react to it. At one point, he heard a rustle to the left, sharp, fast. He froze. The next moment, a bushbuck leapt from the undergrowth, bounding out of sight. It wasn't a threat, but it was a signal. If prey had fled, was something hunting nearby? He adjusted his path, moving in a wide arc around the sound, keeping to the shade. It wasn't fear that drove him, it was calculation, avoidance, preservation. This was the difference between instinct and strategy. At the stream, he watched as one of the younger females picked up a fruit and rinsed it in the water. She bit it, made a face, and spat it out. Too bitter. But instead of discarding it, she dipped it again, rubbed it, bit again. This time she chewed. Ororin took note. Later he tried the same. It worked. The water softened the outer flesh, made it easier to eat. He didn't think of it as learning. But he never forgot. Before sunset, he returned to the flat stone he'd used earlier. This time, he brought more fruits. He stacked them neatly, testing their hardness with his fingers. He arranged the stones better, more securely. As he worked, another juvenile arrived, carrying her own stash of unbroken fruit. She sat nearby, watching his hands, then tried her own method. They sat together, breaking shells, sharing small pieces, eating in silence. No one taught them. No one needed to. This was knowledge in motion. Ororin's fingers grew more confident with each strike. He wasn't just surviving. He was inventing, shaping an invisible future with every fragment of stone, every sticky fruit core tossed to the side. He paused at one point to wipe juice from his arm and noticed something. A trail of ants marching down a tree trunk. He knelt to observe, plucked one ant up, studied it, then crushed it between thumb and finger. He sniffed it, sharp, acidic. not useful. But next to the tree, a termite mound rose from the earth like an ancient fortress. He grabbed a stick. Not any stick, but one with a firm spine and a thin point. He poked it into the mound's small hole, waited, then pulled it out. The stick was crawling with termites. He licked them off. This was different from smashing open the mound. This was extraction. A method. A plan. He repeated it. And once more. The food was small, but the act was enormous. He had taken part of the world and made it serve him. It wasn't tool creation. Not yet. But it was close. By dusk, the sky had darkened into a deep violet. The leaves above glistened with moisture as nightfall returned to the forest. Ororin climbed a wide-branched tree he had used before. He scanned the canopy for stability, chose a fork where 3 limbs met, and began gathering leaves. He didn't just pile them. He layered them. He pressed them into the central depression of his nest, forming a softer base than the night before. He remembered how his back had ached, how cold the bark had felt through the twigs. Tonight would be different. It wasn't necessity, it was preference. The first whisper of comfort in a world ruled by survival. As he settled into his nest, he could hear the others preparing theirs. Soft rustles, the snap of dry branches, the occasional grunt of someone adjusting position. Above them, the stars emerged. No names, no myths, just light on dark. But Ororin looked at them. He watched the pattern. And somewhere deep inside, beyond language, beyond thought, he knew they would return tomorrow. Just like the fruit. Just like the stream. Just like the cat that prowled past the ridge only once every few days. He remembered. And remembering, in this world, was everything. He curled into the shape of the nest, his arms around his chest, knees tucked. The night breeze touched his face. His eyes closed. Around him, the forest whispered its secrets to those who listened. And Ororin, half ape, half human, but wholly alive, slept beneath a sky he could not name, in a world he was slowly beginning to understand. Between 2 worlds. The air felt different today. It wasn't the sharp coolness of a storm or the heavy stillness that came before a predator's approach. It was something subtler, a looseness in the soil, a brightness in the light, a deeper hum from the insects. Change. Ororin noticed it as soon as he climbed from his nest. His eyes blinked against the crisp light filtering through the canopy, and his long arms moved slowly, carefully, as he balanced along the branch. Below him, the forest gave way to something more open. Not yet grassland, not yet savanna, but wider, lighter, less dense. He had climbed trees his entire life. They were safety, memory, shelter. In the branches he had learned to sleep, to build, to watch, to eat. But lately he had spent more time on the ground. The others had too. The forest was changing, inch by inch, season by season. Certain trees no longer bore fruit. Some vines had withered. The thick tangle of cover they had once used to hide from leopards was thinning. The world above was pulling back, and the ground below was calling them down. So he listened. When he touched the earth with the soles of his feet, it no longer felt foreign. He didn't drop to all fours as quickly as before. He stood longer, walked further, scanned wider. His hips still ached. His knees still wobbled. But his legs had learned a rhythm that was beginning to feel less like struggle and more like form. Ororin walked alone at first, picking his way through scattered shrubs and tall reeds. Insects buzzed around him. A lizard darted past his toes. He bent, caught a beetle, and popped it into his mouth. Crunchy, familiar, sustaining. As he moved, he glanced back toward the trees where others were beginning to stir. The scarred male sat halfway up a trunk, scratching at his arm. The elder female foraged near a patch of moss. Two juveniles chased each other through low ferns, making high-pitched grunts and flapping their arms. They had not yet followed him into the open. He didn't blame them. There was risk in leaving the trees, but also opportunity. At the edge of the clearing, a ridge of stones caught the morning sun. He climbed it slowly, one hand on the ground, the other on his knee. From the top, he could see everything, the thinning line of forest behind him, and ahead, a field of waist-high grass, golden and soft in the breeze, stretching toward a distant hill. He wasn't the only creature who saw it. To his left, a group of gazelle-like animals moved in slow formation, heads down, tails twitching. Their ears flicked in his direction. He froze. They watched, then continued. To his right, a flock of birds lifted into the air, startled by something unseen. Ororin squinted, shaded his brow, and scanned the grass. Movement. Too low to see clearly. But there. Fast. Quiet. Intent. He backed away. He was not fast enough to outrun a cat in open grass. But he was not helpless either. He returned to the forest edge. His hands moved quickly now, gathering vines, selecting two stones, one flat and wide, the other round. He didn't know how to fight, but he knew how to prepare. Back at the ridge, he crouched behind a boulder and waited. The predator never showed, but the lesson lingered. That night, as the group gathered in the trees to rest, Ororin shared space beside the elder female. She smelled of damp bark and crushed leaves. Her hands were calloused, her fur thinned with age, but her eyes still saw. He offered her a cracked fruit from his pile. She took it without looking. This was not gratitude. It was agreement. The next morning, they moved together. This time, she followed him toward the grass. They didn't speak. They didn't lead. But the others noticed. By midday, the juveniles had followed too, bounding ahead, slapping at grass stalks, chasing insects. Ororin didn't stop them. Their energy flushed birds from the brush. Their noise disturbed lizards. Their motion scattered beetles and ants and worms. And behind them, the adults gathered the scattered, unearthed spoils. A primitive form of cooperation. Unspoken. Accidental. But real. They stopped at a stream running between the tall grass and the trees. The water was shallow, slow-moving, rich with sediment. Ororin stepped in first, feeling the silt ooze between his toes. He bent, cupped water, drank deeply. The others joined. A juvenile waded too far, lost balance, splashed down. The scarred male reached quickly, pulled him up by the shoulder. The child coughed, laughed. No harm done. But something else had happened. In that moment, brief, unnoticed, they had created a boundary. The adults stayed near the shore. The juveniles tested the middle. And one of them had crossed a line and been retrieved. Structure. Roles. A simple choreography of care. Later, as they rested beneath a cluster of trees growing along the stream's bend, Ororin found a cluster of pale roots beneath a rotting log. He didn't eat them, not yet. Instead, he used a stick to pull the soil aside, inspect them, smell them. One was soft and sweet. The others were hard, sharp-scented, poisonous. He tossed the bitter ones aside, kept the sweet. Later that night, a juvenile found the same log and pulled at the same roots. He sniffed, bit, then, watching Ororin's eyes, spat it out and reached for the ones Ororin had placed to the side. No lecture, no correction, but learning nonetheless. They returned to the trees at sunset, but this time only some of them. The elder female and Ororin stayed at ground level, building nests low among thick roots. Others followed. A few climbed. The group was splitting, not in anger, but in strategy. The forest above still held security, but the forest floor now held promise. In the middle of the night, Ororin awoke to a strange sound, a hollow moan rolling through the grasslands. Not close, but not far. He looked up. The stars blinked down. He didn't recognize constellations, but he knew direction. The call had come from the east. He would avoid it in the morning. As dawn returned, he walked through grass still damp with dew. He held a stick in one hand, not to fish termites, not to dig, but to test the ground ahead. He pressed it into the mud before stepping. When he reached a clearing, he spotted the gazelle-like animals again, drinking, heads low. He crouched, watched, didn't approach. He wasn't ready, but he would remember this place, this time of day, this behavior. And maybe, someday, someone like him, someone with sharper tools and faster legs, would hunt here. But today, Ororin simply watched. And in that stillness, between trees and plains, between climbing and walking, between instinct and intention, he stood, upright, alert, aware. A creature in transition, and a future already beginning to form. The shape of connection. The morning air pressed softly against the leaves, and the forest exhaled with the rhythm of life continuing, without ceremony, without disruption, just continuation. Ororin was already awake before the first bird sounded. Not from fear, and not from hunger, but because something in his body had already shifted toward awareness. His back leaned against the wide roots of the tree where he had made his low nest the night before. The bark was cool, damp with dew, and above him the first rays of the sun filtered between the branches, brushing light across his cheek. He stirred slowly, not with alarm, but with instinctive alertness. Nearby, the elder female was still asleep, her frame curled in the shape of rest earned through caution. He turned his eyes toward the trees beyond, where some of the others had climbed high the night before. They were now descending in silence. Not all had chosen the ground. Some still clung to height, to elevation. But the lower nests were increasing, a gentle migration downward. Ororin did not think about these things the way modern people think. He did not analyze patterns. He did not wonder why. But he noticed. And in his noticing, he adjusted. In his adjustment, he communicated. His movements, when to go, when to pause, how to stand, these were words without sound. And others listened. One of the juveniles, still unsteady on 2 feet, approached him while dragging a long leaf behind her. She held it like a prize, then dropped it at his feet. He looked at it, then at her, then pushed it gently back toward her. She grabbed it again and ran away with a soft clicking sound from her mouth, a vocalization unique to her, but understood, excitement, play, recognition. Later, as the group gathered by the stream, Ororin sat back from the water, letting the others pass before him. The scarred male arrived and knelt to drink. The two did not touch, did not speak. But when Ororin rose to approach the water, the scarred male stepped aside, allowing space. It was a gesture, a subtle shift. No challenge, no hierarchy claimed. Simply space given, acknowledged. These were not formal rules. There were no laws carved into stone. But the group followed patterns, of who led movement, who lingered at the rear, who shared fruit when it was found, who ignored the juveniles, and who tolerated them. Ororin was not the loudest. He was not the largest. But when he shifted direction, others followed. When he stopped, others looked. That afternoon, they came upon a narrow path through reeds where a fallen branch had blocked the way. A few juveniles tried to climb over it, kicking and flailing. One slipped, cried out, not in pain, but in frustration. The elder female walked around the bush instead. Ororin followed her path. One by one, the others adjusted, circling the obstacle. No one gave a command, but the group had learned that efficiency could spread, and ease could be adopted. Communication did not require speech. That night, as they returned to their chosen sleeping areas, a dispute broke out, not loud, but felt. One of the younger males tried to build a nest close to the scarred male's spot. The scarred one stood, squared his body, shoulders raised, arms still. A warning. The younger male stiffened, waited, then moved a few paces to the left. The moment passed. The group accepted it. Conflict diffused before it formed. Ororin watched all this from the base of a tree, already gathering leaves. He preferred nests with a slight curve, where the ground sloped just a little. He chose spots near rocks or roots, places where his back could rest against something firm, where his view would be unobstructed in the morning. As he wove together branches, a juvenile approached, curious again. She sat nearby, mimicking the way his fingers twisted the vines. Her nest would be weak, would collapse before morning. But she watched, learned. And Ororin did not push her away. That night, the sky cleared fully, and the stars opened overhead. No one named them. No one pointed. But some of the group lay on their backs, blinking into the glittering silence. Ororin watched as the elder female leaned into the crook of her tree, breathing steadily. The scarred male had positioned himself between the forest and the stream, where the grass rustled easily in the wind. And Ororin, half curled in his nest, listened. He listened to breathing, to stillness, to the way the juveniles shifted in their sleep, to the way one adult moved just slightly closer to another. These were not words, but they meant something. In the early hours before sunrise, a sound stirred the camp. A branch cracking, a bird startled, a breeze catching scent. Ororin sat up, slow and watchful. The group didn't panic. No one fled, but they listened together. The sound passed. It became wind again, and they slept. The following day, they moved as a unit again, not tightly, but in rhythm. Some broke ahead. Others trailed behind. But they rejoined without effort. At a low grove of fig trees, they fed together. Some climbed. Some remained on the ground. They exchanged no greetings. But each presence was felt. At one point, Ororin dropped a piece of fruit. A juvenile snatched it. He didn't react. He simply picked another. But the juvenile paused, then dropped half of it nearby before scampering off. Small things, big meanings. As the day warmed, Ororin walked side by side with the elder female. She was slower now, pausing more often. He never stopped for her, but he adjusted his path to match hers. They passed an area of recent disturbance, broken branches, fresh dung, a strong odor. Not from their group. Another had passed here. Not predator. Not prey. Like them. Ororin sniffed the air again. His body bristled, not with fear, but with alertness. The others felt it too. They paused, looked, shifted closer. The decision came without vote. They turned, back toward safer ground. That night, the nests were closer together. The juveniles stayed tighter. Even the scarred male built his higher than usual. Ororin's nest was low, his body curled tightly. But his ears never rested. He was listening not for sound, but for silence. The kind of silence that said, "We are not alone." They would not meet the others, not tonight. But the world was growing wider, and they would have to grow with it. By the time morning broke, Ororin was already walking. Behind him, the group followed, not because they were told, but because they knew. He looked ahead, where the trees thinned and the earth shimmered with dew. Each step forward carried more than his weight. It carried memory. It carried observation. It carried connection. And connection, now, was everything. The memory that survives. The sun climbed higher over the edge of the trees, casting shadows long and silver across the uneven ground. The wind brought a dry smell today, something brittle and distant, as if the earth itself were shifting beneath the grass. Ororin stood with one foot half planted in mud and the other on a flat stone, adjusting his balance not by thought, but by memory. This stretch of terrain had changed. A tree that once bore fruit now stood bare, its bark darkened and flaking. The path that curved around the stream had collapsed slightly after last week's rain. But he remembered. He remembered the exact rhythm of roots beneath the soil where they had once tripped him. He remembered where the sun broke through between branches near noon, where termites liked to tunnel under the stones. He remembered not in pictures or words, but in the muscles of his feet, in the cautious tilt of his spine, in the pause between one step and the next. That was the gift of his time. He lived in a world where nothing was told, only shown. And yet, everything was remembered. A juvenile female followed behind him now, her steps clumsy, her breathing quick. She did not know the path as he did, but she knew to follow him, just far enough not to disturb. She mimicked the way he touched bark to test if it held moisture, how he flicked a pebble across a pool before stepping in. She had no concept of learning, but she was learning anyway. Ahead, the stream they had known all season had narrowed, its water slower, warmer, less clean. Fish no longer darted beneath its surface, but flies did. Their hum was steady, circling above dark pockets where fruit had fermented in the sun. Ororin paused there. The scent of rot was sharp in his nostrils. He turned over a fallen fruit with a stick. Maggots squirmed. He lowered his face, sniffed once, then recoiled. Unfit. He turned to move, but the juvenile didn't follow. She leaned forward, poked at another fruit, pulled it apart slowly. He waited. She tasted a small bit of the skin, then spat it out. She stood and walked after him. She had copied him, but not blindly. That was important, because not all mimicry survives. Only the mimicry that selects. As the sun burned higher, the group reconvened beneath a patch of scattered trees. Their positions were not assigned, but they were familiar. The elder female always sat near the leaning trunk. The scarred male kept to the outer edge, where the sun fell brighter and he could scan the grass. Ororin chose shade near the base of a rock, where water sometimes pooled at night. There was no conversation, no planning, but the pattern held. Even the youngest knew where to rest. A juvenile male plucked a dry branch and struck it lightly against the trunk beside him. Once, then again, then faster. Not play, not entirely. He was testing the sound, the resistance, the texture. Ororin watched. After a while, the juvenile dropped the stick and picked up another, thicker, heavier. He tried again. From where he sat, Ororin looked down and saw a row of stones laid in a curve where the stream had once flowed wider. It was not a wall, not a tool, but it had form, a shape that repeated. Nature had made it, or something had moved it before. He picked up one of the stones. Flat, cold, familiar. He set it on his thigh. Then another. Not stacking. Not sculpting. Just arranging. A rhythm. A placement. For no reason except that it felt right. The elder female watched from nearby. Her eyes didn't linger. But when Ororin stood and left the stones, she passed by later and touched them. She didn't move them, but she noticed. That evening, the sky turned the color of ash and copper. The air was hot without wind. The insects stayed low. The trees fell quiet. The group built nests earlier than usual. Ororin chose a tree with wide roots and built low. He layered leaves beneath the twigs. The way he had learned made the weight more bearable. He preferred the curve of the trunk against his shoulder. It helped him sleep. As he built, another adult arrived, young, strong, but hesitant. Ororin stepped slightly to the side, widening the arc of his nest. Not an invitation, but not resistance either. The other hominins settled beside him, weaving a nest of their own. 2 nests, close but not touching, each made slightly faster by the presence of the other. At night, the stars did not show. The sky remained blank. But the group still looked upward, each from their place, as if waiting. Waiting not for stories, but for signal. The silence of the stars said, "Sleep now." In the middle of the night, a low howl moved across the plain, distant but deep. Not a cat, not a bird, something else. A rival group, another species, or just a sound the wind had stretched into shape. No one moved, but Ororin sat up. He looked to the elder female, who was already sitting. They exchanged no sign, but both stayed awake until the sound passed. In the morning, before the others stirred, Ororin rose and walked back toward the half-dried streambed. There, where the grass met the bank, he found tracks, not theirs. Fresh, deep, split-toed. He crouched low and placed his hand beside the print. Wider than his. He sniffed the ground. The others would come here soon. He turned and rubbed his scent against a tree trunk nearby, high enough that others would see it as they passed. A marker. A warning. A memory made visible. Later, when the group passed through, they slowed. The scarred male stopped, smelled, then walked around the stream's edge rather than through it. No one explained, but everyone adjusted. This was how memory became shared. As the sun neared its peak, Ororin returned to the curved stones from the day before. One had been moved, just slightly, not by wind. Someone else had touched it. He knelt, moved it back, then added another, smaller one to the side. It meant nothing, but he remembered its shape, and the next day he would return to see if the shape remained. This was the beginning of culture, not art, not belief, but pattern held on purpose. The sense before sound. The forest was still, but not in peace. It was the stillness before something arrives, before sound, before shape. Ororin stood on a rise of dry earth, one hand resting lightly on a branch that didn't sway. Even the insects had gone quiet. His breath came in soft puffs through his nostrils, not from exhaustion but from listening. Not with ears, with bone, with spine. The kind of listening that hums in the ribs before thunder cracks. Something had changed. Behind him, the rest of the group picked slowly at roots beneath a fig tree. The elder female rolled a bruised fruit in her hand, tapping it against a stone before biting. A juvenile chattered softly to itself, turning a piece of vine into a loop and dropping it on its own foot. None of them had noticed. Not yet. But Ororin stepped back from the rise, and crouched. The hairs on his neck had stiffened. His hands no longer explored. They pressed flat to the dirt. Still nothing moved. And then, there it was. A shape between trees. Far but not too far. Moving low. Wide shoulders. No upright posture. No long tail. It was not one of them. And it was not a friend. Ororin made no sound. Instead, he turned toward the juvenile and narrowed his eyes. A slight tilt of his head. The child froze mid-play. The elder female looked up from her fruit. She too had learned this language, the unsaid. Without a signal, without even a gesture, the group began to rise. One by one. Slow. No panic. Just motion. A pattern rehearsed through generations who had survived not by force, but by noticing first. Ororin led them along the uneven path by the dry gully, one that wound around the ridge but offered no clear scent trail. They did not run. Running makes noise. Instead, they bent low and moved in half silhouettes under the shadowed limbs. As they walked, Ororin listened, not to the predator behind them, but to the rhythm of their steps. Were they too fast? Too loud? Was anyone missing? He counted them not by number, but by the footfall harmony. A beat repeated, learned in the cradle of survival. When they reached the far slope, Ororin slowed. They were no longer being followed. But they would not return yet. The day had not ended. And now the world was watching. They gathered at the base of a wide-rooted tree. The air here was damp, sweet with rotting moss. Not ideal, but safe. The juvenile who had been playing with the vine earlier came to sit beside Ororin. Without words, it offered him the loop of vine again, now misshapen. Ororin took it, turned it once in his hand, then set it on a rock and pressed it flat. The child watched, wide-eyed. From that moment, a memory was formed. Not the event of escape, but the object. The vine. The shape of safety. That night, Ororin built his nest lower than usual. His muscles remained coiled, his hands twitching slightly even in rest. The predator hadn't attacked. But it could have. That was enough. Before sleep, he climbed a small rise near the group's edge. A lookout. From here, he saw the clearing they had left behind. Still, unchanged, but wrong. He picked up a piece of bark and etched a shallow line across it with his nail. He set it on a stone. Tomorrow he might return. Tomorrow he would see if it remained. This too was memory. This too was warning. Midday. The following morning broke hot and windless. Ororin woke to a silence that felt stretched, as though the air waited for something. No alarm sounded. No call of danger. But everyone was watching him. He hadn't spoken, but they had seen the way he slept, with eyes half open. They had seen how he'd moved during the night, how he'd checked the trees 3 times before building his nest. They watched his fear and made it their own. That was how leadership began. Not in domination, but in early awareness. He led them that day not through commands, but through routes. He chose paths with narrow entries, streams with curved escape bends, groves with multiple exits. None of it was explained. All of it was felt. When they came upon another group, distant, unfamiliar, upright but foreign, Ororin stopped the line and held still. The 2 groups observed each other. Neither made sound. Both simply watched. No one crossed. And then, as if rehearsed, both turned and walked their separate ways. Avoidance was survival. The juvenile behind Ororin mimicked the posture, shoulders back, head high. Later, in play, it would walk like that again, not knowing why. But that was the point. The lesson was now inside the muscle. That afternoon, they found a grove where roots held deep water. Ororin kneeled and used the same bark he'd etched the day before to scoop water. The juvenile recognized the object, tried to imitate him, but broke the bark. The scoop failed. Ororin offered no correction. The lesson was in the failure. That night, as stars returned, he did not climb a tree. He sat on a flat stone, under full sky, with his knees pulled to his chest. He did not sleep right away. Instead, he watched the open plain. Not for threats, but for memory, for confirmation that he had survived one more day, that the rhythm of the past had brought him safely into this night. And for a moment, under the turning sky, he allowed his eyes to close, not from exhaustion, but from trust. Tomorrow would bring new patterns, and he would remember them all. The shape of what comes next. The sun rose with no announcement. Just a slow wash of light over the high tree canopies, gilding the leaves in silent gold. The nests were still, except for one. Ororin was already awake. He moved before the others stirred, making no sound, stepping barefoot across the leaf-thick forest floor. The light clung to his shoulders as he crouched near a patch of mossy stone and watched dew gather at the edges of a fern. Everything in this world had a rhythm, and now so did he. Behind him, the juvenile from days before climbed awkwardly down from a low tree branch, holding a crooked stick in one hand. It didn't speak, none of them spoke, but the look in its eyes said what needed saying. "Where are we going today?" Ororin said nothing, but he looked toward the path that curved east, where the canopy opened into flat grassland. He started walking, and the child followed. The group moved slowly this morning. No predator had been seen for 2 days, and the air was thick with damp heat. The elder female lagged behind, stopping to smell bark and chew fallen figs. Others walked in pairs or trios, sometimes silent, sometimes clicking softly with their mouths. There was no map, no direction, only memory, only Ororin. He led them not because he was strongest or fastest, but because he saw more. Earlier, the trail curved down toward a stream, choked with reeds and shaded by 2 leaning trees. The water moved sluggishly, but it was clean. Ororin cupped it in his hands and drank. The juvenile mimicked the gesture again, scooping with both hands, but spilling most. It made a sound of frustration. Ororin didn't look. He simply handed the child a large, flat leaf. The child tried again, and this time succeeded. That moment, the passing of a leaf, was not just hydration. It was inheritance. Mid-morning brought something unexpected. A rustle at the tree lean. Not danger. Movement. A female from the group emerged, carrying an infant against her chest. The child clung to her fur with both hands, legs gripping tightly around her hip. Ororin had seen this child before. Newborns were rare, fragile, but this one looked alert. Its eyes, dark and searching, scanned the space between trees. As the mother approached the stream, Ororin stepped aside. The juvenile did too. Everyone recognized what was happening. Deference, not to rank, but to life itself. The mother crouched beside the stream, the baby still latched to her shoulder. As she drank, Ororin watched how she moved, not rushed, not anxious, but alert, always alert. This was the way of their kind: move when needed, stop when safe, and never forget who else walks this world. The mother stood, turned her head slightly toward Ororin, and moved on. Nothing was said. Everything was exchanged. By midday, they reached the old grove where the nut-bearing trees grew. A familiar place. Safe. There, Ororin found the same stone from days ago, the flat one with a dent in the center. He picked up another stone, used it to crack open a pod. The loud crack echoed once. Others followed. Soon, the group was busy, cracking, chewing, rinsing. The juvenile brought its own stone and tried. Missed. Tried again. Succeeded. Ororin watched, then nodded once. Nearby, the elder female did something curious. She shared. She bit a piece of fruit and offered the other half to a smaller female. The act was not rare, but it was noticed. Ororin blinked once. What would such moments become? He didn't know the word for cooperation, but he knew its shape. Later in the afternoon, the sky darkened slightly. Not with clouds, but with wind. A dry gust moved through the tall grasses, bending stalks in a wave. Ororin rose to his full height and looked toward the hills. Storms? No, not yet. But something had shifted. He motioned to move. Just a glance, a footstep, and others understood. The group began to gather their findings: fruit, nuts, bark, leaves. The infant clung tightly again. The juvenile stopped playing. Even in peace, readiness was law. They moved into a cluster of trees where vines hung low and shade pooled like ink. There, they began to make nests. But not all would climb. Ororin stayed low. He began gathering branches with care, choosing ones with bend, not break. He layered them, then pressed down gently at the center. The depression deepened. A soft bed, strong enough to hold him. The juvenile helped. Clumsy fingers, wrong angles, but it tried. Together, they built a place where no words had ever built before. Night came with stars. Bright, wheeling, endless. The Milky Way spilled across the sky in silent brilliance. Ororin lay in the nest he'd made, the juvenile curled near his knee. He could feel its small hand on his leg. It breathed in rhythm with him. Around them, the forest breathed too. Crickets chirped. Owls hooted. A distant hyena laughed into the dark. But nothing came. The group slept. And in that sleep lay a history still unwritten. No one would remember this night. Not with names. Not with dates. But memory had already begun. In posture. In gesture. In habit. Ororin closed his eyes, and for a moment saw not danger, not food, not predators. He saw the shape of what comes next. He saw them.